Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Nonprofit Show. Today we have Michael Nugier with us, Director of Cybersecurity with Eide Bailly. And Michael was with us yesterday. He's here with us today to talk about creating a cybersecurity safety culture, and he's going to be back tomorrow. So we've got a lot of Michael coming up, but again, as we had said earlier, we are merely scratching the surface of this very large discussion topic and really just issue that we should all have as part of our conversation. So before we dive into the conversation, we of course want to make sure that you know who we are if you have not met. So Julia Patrick joins us. Julia is the CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. I'm Jarrett Ransom, the nonprofit nerd CEO of the Raven Group, and we are so excited to continue these conversations, dive deep in these thought leader episodes, and we would not be able to have these conversations and be 400 plus episodes strong if it weren't for these logos that you see right in front of you. These companies have been dedicated to our conversations, to our episode, and to you and your mission. So they truly are here to help you serve your community and to help you move your mission forward. So please do check them out. If there's anything these companies can do, please do reach out to them because they are here to help you and to be a part of your team. Just as Michael, again, our guest today, Michael Nugier, Director of Cybersecurity with Eide Bailly. Welcome back, Michael.
Pleasure to be here. I'm excited about it.
Now, yesterday you were in a different city altogether. Tell us where you are today.
Yeah, so yesterday I was in Minneapolis. Last night I drove down to Mankato. It's about an hour and a half drive south. We have an office here where I wanted to meet the office essentially and talk through what we are offering from internally as well. So Mankato, Minnesota now. So yeah, and then back to Denver tomorrow.
Oh. They've got you on a tour. You need the tour T-shirt. Like where in the world is Michael?
Yeah. That I should wear a red hat like Carmen Sandiego apparently.
You should, yes.
Oh, that's the best. Well, we're thrilled that you found time to travel, organize your thoughts, and get back with us because we had so many reactions to what you said yesterday. I mean, I was freaked out all day. And I had so many questions, and I thought, most of the time when we leave these episodes, I'm thinking, okay, I knew that, or I had a feeling of that, or I learned something new, but it was built upon the foundation of a lot of knowledge that I already have. When I left you yesterday, I have to admit, I did not have that feeling. And I realized that I had so many more questions that were really foundational. And so I thought today, let's start with the concept of, is cybersecurity relegated to like one part of our nonprofit? Is it just one department? I have a feeling you're going to say no.
No, the answer is, it could be yes and no, right? It's not necessarily, is cybersecurity just one, does it only need to protect one portion of our organization, right? One of the things that I like to convey about cybersecurity is that everybody is responsible for it, not just the IT person or the cybersecurity person. Everybody has access to the corporate network that's working within the nonprofit, and everybody has access to specific types of data. Now, the levels of security in different departments might need to differ, right? You want to protect the data, the financial data and the donor information more than you might want to protect information that's coming into, say, the front desk or something along those lines, right? And so the level of security might differ. The baseline needs to be there, but it is ultimately everybody is responsible for cybersecurity.
Yeah.
That's like, okay, again, we've only had you on for 4 minutes. My hair is now back on fire because I kind of feel like, and Jared, tell me what you think. I kind of feel like this has always been like, oh, that's a problem for the accounting folks or development.
Yeah.
that
Or
this is-
IT, right? It's like,
yeah,
I don't need to think about cybersecurity because, we have a Michael here and Michael gets to fix everything. But you're right. And that makes sense. I also say fundraising is everyone's job. And now I'm going to say fundraising and cybersecurity.
Yeah. Yeah. You are all representatives of the same mission and culture. And that's why we're talking about culture today, right? Is that culture of cybersecurity, that culture of the protection of the donor information and of the data that is traversing inside of your organization is everybody's responsibility, right? We all get targeted with cyber attacks. It's not just one or two people, it's all of us. And so as such, we need to do our due diligence to provide that security within the organization. Now, I don't think every employee needs to go out and technically monitor the IT security of every system, but we all have some form of responsibility within cybersecurity. And that's the cultural aspect of it.
Well, I'm thinking too, nonprofits depend often on our volunteer workforce. And so that is another layer of complexity, education, and training when it comes to cybersecurity. And I would love to just throw this curveball out for you, Michael. Julie and I are known for, really, really just throwing out some crazy, conversations. But I'm curious if cybersecurity happens internally as well as externally. Because when I think of cybersecurity, I'm thinking, oh, these are all of the people externally, have no idea who we are and what we do. But could there be a breach through either an employee or a volunteer that is like really, I don't know, opening the doors for this opportunity?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, cybersecurity, most people think of that as a technical control, right? The computers, the ones and zeros that are traversing the internet, right? But there is a physical aspect to that as well. Physical access to a system is a cybersecurity consideration. Having volunteers, right? They are volunteering for a reason. They are not just randomly picking a nonprofit to volunteer with. They agree with the mission and the vision of this, and the culture needs to apply to them as well, right? You have a culture statement, and that has to extend to the volunteers as well as internal staff. But that physical piece, right? If we have volunteers that have some form of trust in the organization to give them access somewhere that has a computer or something like that, there is a cybersecurity risk there.
Yeah. There's so many layers that I am remiss in thinking through, and really remiss in putting cybersecurity higher in the priority of conversation. So again, just so grateful for you and your expertise. Where and how can we determine where we might have vulnerability throughout our departments or throughout our organization? How can we determine where these, weak spots might exist?
Yeah, I often get asked a question, right? I have X amount of dollars to spend on cybersecurity. Where should I start? And so I boil it up. If I had $1 to spend on cybersecurity, where should I spend it? And it's visibility. It's visibility inside of your organization. Where do those weaknesses occur? And there are a lot of assessments you can do, understanding where there might be gaps or vulnerabilities in policy and the conceptual aspects of cybersecurity. And then there are technical tests like a penetration test, which test the technical weaknesses, security weaknesses on your devices that you have in your system. And both of those run together should provide you the visibility that you need to understand where those weaknesses are and a roadmap to move forward on how to protect against those, which risks you need to accept and which risks you need to mitigate quicker, that prioritization.
Yeah. That's kind of that's a bigger picture issue that I would imagine if you ask 10 nonprofit leaders, maybe only 1 out of the 10 might even get that.
So there are statistics around that, specifically within nonprofits, right? I think it's 29% of nonprofits actually perform vulnerability assessments or penetration tests.
Wow. And is there a statistic or a measure of financial kind of, allocation that we should say, okay, we're $1 million nonprofit. How much money should we budget to allot for this, cybersecurity needs?
Well, that's a hard one. That's a hard question to answer because you need to understand what the current state of the organization is from a cybersecurity perspective. What is there cultural aspect to the organization that provides an emphasis on security? And if so, that percentage probably needs to be a little bit higher. And I would say that it's important to have that culture aspect to focus on securing the organization and the data of the donors and the data of the employees. You know, 5 years ago, I think the typical percentage was between 3 and 5% of the IT budget should be focused on cybersecurity. I would probably stress that it's a lot higher now than it was 5 years ago.
So 3 to 5% of the IT department.
Right.
That's not very big.
That is not.
No, and that's why I'm like, as a cybersecurity professional, I think the focus needs to be higher because these are one of the detrimental, like cybersecurity can be a detrimental occurrence inside of your organization if not handled correctly. It can lead to not being a business anymore. And oftentimes it is. 60% of small businesses will go out of business after experiencing a cybersecurity attack.
Yeah, I remember you saying that yesterday. So if you have not listened to yesterday's episode, it is available to you. It will remain available to you. But when you stated that, Michael, that these are business ending attacks, that is frightening. I mean, super frightening. And it's really across all sectors, all industries, not just the nonprofit, but again, you know, for the nonprofit sector, we typically focus so much on our mission and providing that solution to the community problem that we aren't the expertise when it comes to cybersecurity. So these truly are mission ending, you know, issues that we're talking about.
Right. And it's the work that the nonprofits are doing that's so important. So protecting the capability and the future proofing that to make sure that you can continue to perform those the work that you need to, the mission that you're trying to achieve is important. Securing it is very important.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you talked about the technology budget. I would think that the discussion about what technology you want to be investing in could sort of back up to what your cyber security issues are and that cultural aspect of it, so that you might want to say, okay, no, we're going to invest in these types of laptops or systems or software. Right. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think the big focus has been, do we invest in our own hardware or do we invest in the cloud, right? The ethereal cloud that exists somewhere in there. And a lot of organizations are determining that the cloud is the way to go because there's less maintenance, there's less a lot of work that doesn't need to be performed by an IT staff. However, there still is a cybersecurity consideration with all of these. Just because you're moving to the cloud does not mean that cybersecurity needs to disappear. There is still protection of data. Data still belongs to you. You're just outsourcing where it's stored, essentially. And so, yes, it does change how you focus on cybersecurity to some extent, but that focus still needs to remain.
So one of the focuses that I know we are seeing, and this is a trend that I really believe is here to stay, is our remote workforce, right? And you had mentioned during our chitty chat, or maybe even before we open those digital doors, that remote workforces and cybersecurity is a topic that you could talk about for hours. So I would love if we could, use the remaining time of today's episode to talk about this, because this is a trend that we have seen over the last 2 years due to the global health pandemic. And again, it's not leaving. So talk to us, Michael, what are things that we need to consider when it comes to our remote workforce?
Yeah, so when I talk about trends within the cybersecurity industry, one of the top trends I talk about is the growing attack surface. And ultimately, the attack surface is just from a hacker's perspective, what is available to attack, right? And as an organization, you need to be aware of what your attack surface is so you can protect it. Back in March of 2020, when a lot of organizations were forced to move remote, they did so without the consideration of cybersecurity. They had to maintain some business continuity, but they didn't have the technical controls in place to secure that. And so what happens when you move from a corporate network to a home network is that the home network does not maintain the management of the organization, right? You don't control each employee's home Wi-Fi. And when I went home, my kids have their own tablets and their school laptops and whatever they play video games on. And so they have access to the same internet that my work computer is connecting from. And as a hacker, that's great for me because I'm looking at all of these devices as potential targets now. And if my work laptop is connected to the same network that my kid's laptop is, I can go after two different targets here. And that's only one piece, right? 10 years ago, 20 years ago, nobody had email on their cell phone unless you were important enough to have a Blackberry, right? Everybody remembers those, right?
Oh, yes.
People, they called them crackberries to some extent because people needed them so much. And move to today, every single employee that has an email address basically has corporate information on their, right? We coined the 4-digit acronym BYOD, right? Bring your own device. Everybody knows about that. And so that increases the corporate attack surface as well. And then one of the massive things that I talk about is anything with an internet connection is a target. So when you're talking about your home network, I can change the temperature at my house from Mankato all the way back in Denver, right? So, right, there's another internet connected device. There are refrigerators that have cameras in it so that when you go grocery shopping and you don't know if you have milk, you can look inside your refrigerator. All of these pose a risk and another attack surface item to be protected. And so when everybody transitioned from their office to their house, those devices became a part of that corporate network to some extent, if the proper security controls weren't in place. And most people didn't have time to consider that. And so there was a lot of this retroactive consideration.
And most people didn't even, I know, Julia, if I could just help you with your jaw. A lot of us also didn't even realize, the threats that come with that. Because as you're saying this, I am inventorying everything that I have in my house, right? There's PlayStations, because I too have a young child. All of this is internet connected, right? Even the little, oh gosh, I forget what they are, but the little handheld PlayStations, whatever. All of this is connected to the internet. Now, is this why there's a need for VPN? And tell us what that is. And is that something we consider?
Yes, so VPN is critical in the protection of the data on your corporate laptop. When you're connecting to a public Wi-Fi or a home Wi-Fi, that VPN is called it's a virtual private network. And what it creates is a tunnel that siphons the data from your laptop back to your organization. And I can't see that data from the outside because it is in this tunnel. It is encrypted within this tunnel. And the only two people that can see it are the end of the corporate network and your device.
Yeah.
And so VPN is critical. And then when we talk about VPN, logging into VPN, your credentials, making sure that you have that multi-factor authentication. Right? Most people hate. let's take a step back. There is a conflict between ease of use and cyber and security in the world. Most people don't want to be inconvenienced to get access to the things they need access to. So multi-factor authentication is often considered an evil tool because it makes you have to get a text message or go check an email or leave an application on your phone to press a button to authenticate. But
not more work.
It is more work, and sometimes it results in just a couple more seconds of time off of your day, and time is money. But that is one of the easiest ways to thwart an attacker. Even if your password is stolen, you still have the capabilities of authenticating another way, which keeps that single factor authentication a non-issue with our cyber attackers.
Okay. Wow.
And then it's a lot of, I know I'm guilty whenever I am at a coffee shop or at the airport and there's free Wi-Fi, right? And it's like, oh, simple, I'll do that. And that is really probably the most open, vulnerable opportunity for any hacker to access in. And they don't even have to be in the same physical location. They just have to be somewhat close by, right? And I'm curious if you can talk to us about the threats of using open access like that.
Yeah, that is a high to critical risk, in my opinion. Connecting to any Wi-Fi that you don't know is a trusted Wi-Fi. Right. I often tell people, right, your cell phone is able to provide Wi-Fi for your laptop. Utilize that because at least you know it's your Wi-Fi. You connect your laptop to it. Nobody else is connecting to it. When you are connecting at an airport, there are, like, Denver was just ranked like one of the third largest or the third busiest airport in the world the other day. Right? That many people traveling through the airport, any one of them can be connected to the same network as you. And hackers perform what's called a man-in-the-middle attack. So they will monitor the traffic going between your laptop and whatever else if you don't have a VPN connected. Also, public Wi-Fi, a common tactic that hackers use is setting up their own Wi-Fi device with the same name. So if you're connecting at Starbucks and their Wi-Fi is called Starbucks Wi-Fi, I could also set up a device that presents the same thing, Starbucks Wi-Fi, and then you connect to it, and then I can see everything that you're doing on that. If you log into your bank account, I can steal your credentials from there. And so making sure that when you connect to a Wi-Fi network, that it is a trusted network and you are sure of which one it is, which is why I always say, just use your phone.
Just use your phone. Okay, yeah. I got it. Noted. I am going to change my ways, definitely take those extra steps, even if it's a, multi-step what is it? The authorization to do that, as well as using my Wi-Fi. Now, when it comes to a cybersecurity hack, how long does it take? Are we talking minutes, hours, like milliseconds? How long does something like this breach take?
It's a dynamic question, right? It depends on, right, the thoughtfulness and how they set up their attack, right? There is actually a framework for how to attack devices, and it's run by a company called MITRE, and they developed the MITRE attack framework on all the tools, techniques, and procedures that you can use to set up an attack. So if you are thoughtful about the setup of it, the attack can take a couple of seconds to a couple of minutes. But the setup is what really takes the longest amount of time.
Yikes.
Wow. I'm thinking about us in the nonprofit sector. So often we're out with clients. And so we take these laptops. It was revolutionary when organizations started buying laptops for their teams so that they could go and be with their clients or their organizations that they're working with, sister organizations, satellite offices, I mean, you name it, different parts of their communities. This aspect of us taking our work and our pipeline back to the home office has become something that we're very familiar with, but I would imagine the majority of us are not doing what you're saying. We are not adopting this cultural aspect of knowing we need to protect this asset.
There's a concept in application security, which is the development of software, and it's called shift left or push left, which is basically as you are building an application, you go from a process from left to right to build that application. And shifting left is talking about making security a consideration sooner in the process of development. And we try and focus that same concept on cybersecurity, network security, and any other aspect of technology that needs security, is being thoughtful about security sooner in the process so that you aren't retroactively considering it, right? You haven't already exposed yourself.
Okay, so again, my hair's on fire.
I know, my heart's palpitating.
Yeah, I'm going to have no hair left for tomorrow, our last time with you. And we don't have much time left today. But I'm kind of curious about, for our guests and our live viewers, viewers that come on and watch us on our archives or connect to us somehow, what is a way for them to develop this cultural aspect? I mean, can we find IT people that we can, hire on a consulting basis, or how do we navigate this really, and I'll just say it, what sounds like a daunting task, but it seems like it's the starting point, Michael, and maybe I've missed something, but how do we get going?
Yeah, so the vision, the strategy is realistically where most people need to start. And there are consultants that do this. They're considered the V Chief Information Security Officer.
Okay.
And what they do is they come in as a virtual executive at the C-level to consider these types of things. What is your current culture? What are your current business risks? What is your growth plan over the next 5 years? How do you plan on achieving that? And let's talk about where cybersecurity needs to fit in there. One of the things I always like to say is 20 years ago, if you didn't have a website, you weren't going to be a successful business. 10 years ago, if you didn't have a social media presence, you weren't going to be a successful business. Today, if you don't have a cybersecurity strategy, moving forward, you will not have a successful business. It has to be that consideration. And so starting at the top of the organization, building out that cultural statement of what the organization is supposed to be, what the nonprofit is mission and vision is, and then making sure that security is a part of that. We want to help with X, Y, and Z securely, right? Bringing in security into that mission and vision, and building out that culture. Let's protect our donors while providing this help for this portion of the industry that we're focused on.
Wow. Well, I think that's an amazing thing. And, you don't know what you don't know.
No.
And so to find that leadership position, because it's such a strategic thing, and not to denigrate the IT field, but when I think about the IT people that I've worked with or had in my company, they're not necessarily the right voice for that strategy. I'm not trying to negate their skill sets, but it seems to me like that voice that can understand asking the right questions. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. So bringing in somebody that is familiar with those, whether you're looking to hire that position or you're looking for consulting in that arena, the virtual technology executive, the virtual security executive is really the place to start. Or we can call it fractional virtual, or hiring the position to drive that leadership and strategy, because it needs to happen, like I said, from the C-level, from the board level. It needs to be that decision level, and then pushed down throughout the organization. And knowing what questions to ask, knowing where to focus your resources.
Yeah. I think what I've learned as my huge takeaway from yesterday and today, and I am excited already for tomorrow, I be a little nervous, but is really this visibility, is where are we now, understanding our baseline, having that assessment performed by someone like yourself that really has this knowledge to truly, create, the landscape of our information technology systems, identifying risk, not only for today, but in the future, to help us see into, the future, to predict some of the potential risk as they continue to, to move forward. That is something that I am going to take away truly as a professional consultant in this nonprofit sector. I mentioned that I do bring up IT as part of the strategic planning conversation, but really going deeper so that it gets a little bit more attention and priority, because it is scary, and I never want any business or mission to end because of the lack of forethought. And you had mentioned to us, Michael, that Eide Bailly and yourself, you're on this, really big kind of like speaking tour. You offer a variety of seminars, workshops, discussions around this. Could you tell us where we might find more information about this topic and what Eide Bailly is doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Eide Bailly, our website, eidebailly.com / cybersecurity is a great place to start.
Okay.
We'll have from that point, you will be able to find any future webinars or any pre-recorded webinars that we've already done, talking about building a culture, what best practices are, trends in the industry, and any future either in-person or remote webinars as well.
Great.
Awesome.
And tomorrow you're joining us for best practices, if I recall correctly. So if you did not see yesterday's show, please do check that out. Today will be on our archive in perpetuity. And tomorrow is one that you want to be here for, because Michael will be sharing with us about best practices. And so if you have been at any way frightened, like Julie and I have, make sure you join tomorrow, because we're going to end on a high note.
It's true. Well, hey, everybody, this is like blown by, but we want to thank our sponsors before we sign off today. Michael, it's been great. We really, as Jarrett mentioned, we really look forward to kind of getting another view of this tomorrow with best practices. Another great episode. Thank you so much for joining us on the Nonprofit Show. As we like to end every episode, we want to remind you to stay well so you can do well. See you back here tomorrow.